So, good morning, guys. This is session one of computer programming by CodeChef DMC, and we'll be getting started with the basics of programming since this session. In last session, we discussed few tips and tricks to improve your efficiency as well as time in CP. But starting now, we will be going throughout the basics of computer programming with C++ language. So, in computer programming world, the Shri Ganesha, the start at the start of the book, we write Shri Ganesha or Om in the computer programming world. That corresponds to Hello World. So let's type up a Hello World program in C++. First, you include a header file. This is the common header file for input and output, but as we have learned in the previous lecture, we can include all the necessary files required for CP by using this header file. And then can go ahead, type up the main. Inside the init main, we will hello. So this is the start of our CP journey together, and we'll go step by step in each one of the data types, each one of the algorithms, each one of the STL structures, and see that if we can uncover a few unique things about. So while typing up the normal C++ program of Hello World, one thing you might miss out if you have not been in touch with C++ is this std thing. Like, you just type up the header file int main and just blurt out cout. So when you go like this, there will obviously be a warning over here, warning as well as error, that cout function is not declared in the scope. So the problem over here is when we are typing cout, since we have multiple header files, there might be multiple cout also. So we need to specify which cout we are referring to. And for that, std, a namespace called std is used. The std is standard namespace for cout. And in CP, we won't be using any other namespace other than std. So what would be best is if we declare it over here using namespace std. So this is the reason why in most of the books, the common programs have this using namespace std typed up over here, so that you don't have to type std double colon again and again. So next time, if I run this, it won't give me the error and print the hello world program. Okay, going in. We know how to print the things in C++. We use the cout. What if we want to intake something? For that, we use the cin. So let me declare a string over here called str. Cin str. And I will see out the same thing. So let's type up my name, Siddhant. This is the input window. And when we run it, the same thing shows up over here. So the basic thing is many of the starters get confused in this insertion exertion operator. So one way to remember is cin and cout. These both of these are consoles. Okay. And these arrows show the direction of flow of data. So this is console. It goes in this direction. So the data moves from console to str. So whatever is there in console, like right now it's Siddhant. So Siddhant will move from console to str. It will get stored in str. And over here, the flow of the arrows is in this direction. So it goes from str to the console. This is the best way to remember the direction of arrows. So you don't just go and misplace the arrows like this. Yeah, it would obviously give an error because they are the wrong operators for the keywords which we are using. Next up, we have a very common thing which we have been using during the printing. That is, if I type up hello and I want to type something in the next line, what we usually do is in C++ we add endl and then again a string like this, right? Semicolon. Yeah. So the hello shows up over here, void shows up in the next line. But the thing is that endl is a good function, but what it does is endl usually moves cursor to next line. But what it also does is it flashes out the contents to the console. So what if suppose if you are typing something over here, if you are calculating something over here, and suppose if it doesn't show up automatically on the console, the handle forces it to show up on the console and then moves to the next line. But generally, we don't require this at our level. So handle is something too much of a bloatware, right? It does a function which we don't require. So rather than that, we can use a simple thing called backslash n. It does the same job. The only thing is what backslash n does is moves cursor to next line, and that's it. And that's all we need right now. So instead, we can just use backslash n and get the same results. Like if I change something over here so it's noticeable. Right, we are getting the same results even when we are using backslash n rather than end. So it's best practice in CP to include backslash n, and it also saves time. During this small program, it doesn't save much of a time. But if your program is going through thousands of the calculations and loops and printing, and at such times you need to save every bit of microsecond you can. And at that time, this slash n comes into the picture. It can also be added over here along with the also hello. Make sure to note down things. You can open your OneNote, Evernote, sticky notes, your page, back of your hand, front of you want to write. Just take the things down, whichever things you find interesting, take them down. So you won't have to look again when you forget them. Or else you will have to go through whole internet searching for them. It's better to note things down so you can find everything in one single place. So let's comment this out. Now, next up, we have the data types, normal data types. We have got the int. So if I declare int n, and let's take an input. The input and output function of int is very simple. Like if I print here lux 10, and let's take the input as 10. So it should give me 20. Yeah. So integer declaration is as simple as int followed by the variable name, and then you can declare the values here itself 10, or else you can take the value from the console from the user by in and then print it out using cout. As simple as that. Next up, we also have a other one, other primitive data type, which is char. So let's take up a char c. Char is an interesting data type with just 1 byte of memory. So all it can store is just one single character, like A. So if I store A over here, I'm coming this up. If I store A over here, we'll just see out, and it should print A. Right? It prints A. So what if I want to test the boundaries and I add something like B over here? It will obviously throw me an error of overflow and multi-char. Multi-char is for since the character should only accept one character, I've been giving it two characters. So that's why the multi-char warning. And also the overflow is because since it can only character can only store unique values up to 255. Like there are codes for each and every symbol, like A, B, C, D. Each and every one has the ASCII value. Like A, capital A has the ASCII value, small a has the ASCII value of 97, and such. So since I've been providing it value more than the 255 which it recognizes, it gives me such errors. So that is the thing you should keep in mind. Also, one more thing: when you are declaring character while typing in flow, you might end up typing it in double quotes. So when you type it up in double quotes, it will again give you an error because in C++, uh, let me type it over. C++, the single quotes represent character, but the double quotes represent string. So when you're passing A, even though you're passing a single character, it is interpreted as a string, and that's why it cannot be stored in the char. So this is it for the char part. Now when we go ahead, let's put it up over here. I will share this whole doc later on when we are done with the session, so you can refer to it whenever you want. You just add it over. Yeah. So next up, we have an interesting data type, which many of you, if you have not been thorough with C++, might not have heard. It's wchar. It is not much in use in the normal day-to-day programming, but as I mentioned over here, that char can only recognize up to 255 characters. Let's call them symbols. Okay, so what if you have a language there are multiple keyboard inputs, like where we can input the language like Marathi typing and all. So there should be a storage medium for them, right? We should be able to store such languages. If you want to type in Japanese, Marathi, or any other language like Russian, not Spanish, but Russian and all, which have some special symbols. They are not included in these 255 symbols. So you need to be able to recognize them. So WChar T is a wide character which has more space than the normal character, and it can store more values than 255. So generally, when we are using such characters, such languages like Japanese, Marathi, Hindi, we use the WChar to store it. So the declaration is simple, like WChar underscore T, and the variable name, let's call it W. Now here you have to again pay attention, just like in the char, we can only use the single strings. So if I give it A and I decide to print it, so normally you would assume that it should print A, it's storing A, it should print A, right? But let's see, it prints 65. Okay, 65 was not expected, but the relationship between 65 and A, if you know 65 is a sky value of A, capital A to be precise. So the WChar stores the values of these characters. So the next time, if you want to print out A, what if I want to print out A? Just write WC out over here, and it will print out the A for you. Right? We have A over here. Now sometimes we want to store a series of data, and if we want to store it in char, for char it is as simple as this out. And for char, it is as simple as declare an array and write up a string like hello and just print it. It prints the string, it's no problem, it's easy enough. Like just declare the variable, the data type, variable name, and give this two brackets for array, and then write up the string over here. Storing values in array is simple. The character array is simple. But what if I want to do the same with the wchar? So for wchar, of course, the normal routine, wchar underscore t, I go with wa brackets and equal to, let's say, jello this time. Yeah. So the problem over here is it recognizes all this in form of its value. So we have to mention L over here. L stands for literal. So whatever the values will be after L in the string format, it will be taken for the literal value. So when I see out this, you can see the value of Jello. This is the whole value of Jello. And 0x represents hexadecimal. So this is the hexadecimal value of Jello and exclamation mark. So if I want to print the normal thing, we know we just have to type out WCOut and it will give me Jello. As simple as that. Let's comment this. Okay. Next up, we have one more interesting thing, the Boolean character, which is often used in computer programming. Like, let's name this as T. Okay. No, let's call it as B. Okay. The two values which Boolean can take are true and false. These are the only two values that Boolean can take. But what if I write something? Let's go with the true first. If I do true, I see out B. It returns me one. But what if I go with false? Okay, it returns me zero. So false, zero stands for false and one stands for true. That's as easy as it comes. But what if I type something like a string of false, or else I go with 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's start simple. I give it a string. It is a Boolean data type. Still, I'm giving it a string. Let's see what happens. We'll play around with it a little bit. Okay, it prints out one. So what if I, instead of 1, 2, 3, I give it a string with zero? Normally, if I give it a value of zero, bool equals zero, it would print out zero. But if I convert this into a string, it prints out one. So it is a bit interesting. Like if you give it and if you give the boolean variable any value other than false, false, and zero, it will interpret it as true. So what if I don't give it a value at all? Of course, it will give me a warning, but let's see. Let's not initialize this. It gives me a warning, but still it returns zero over here. So when the bool variable is not initialized, it stores the value of false inside it. So unless and until you give it some value, whatever value you give to it, it will interpret it as true unless and until it's false or zero. So that is an interesting thing about bool. Like whatever you give it, many a times during the while loop, when we are using while loop and we want to run it infinitely, and of course we have a break statement inside, we just, instead of typing true, we just give it one, because one is also interpreted as true. So whatever, in such statements where you want a boolean value as return type, if you give it any return type, 1, 2, 3, string 2, 3, 1, string hello, it will all be considered as true unless and until you give it zero or false or keep it blank. As simple as that. Next up, we have a common data type which you might have known, which is double. Now, double and float, this go hand in hand. Like float is the smaller size data type, and double is simply the double of float. So float stores around 4 MB of, 4 bytes of data, whereas double can store 8 bytes of data. Now, what it means for you is float can store up to 7 digits, and whereas double can store up to 15 digits. So whenever you're attempting CP questions, there will be the output will be in format of either you will be given that the things are in bytes, or it will be given like it is in the power of 10 raised to 2, 10 raised to 4. So from that you can determine whether it should fit inside float or you need a double for it. Now next up, let's do something interesting. We have integer. Yeah. So what if I declare a double, name it as A, and double can take up to 15 digits. Yeah. So what I will do is I will give it a bit smaller number than 15. Let's write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 zeros over here multiplied by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 5 and 6 gives me 11. Right. The answer for this is 10 raised to 11. So it must return me 10 raised to 11. So we have to print this also. See out A. When I print it out, I get this like obscene value of something like 1.21575 E plus 009. It's in scientific notation, but it doesn't make sense. My answer was as simple as 10 raised to 11, 10 followed by 11 zeros. Now the thing over here is we will take this concept with a extremely simple example of 3 divided by 2. Now, this answer is obviously in decimals, 1.5, everyone knows it. So the double stores can store the point values, can store big point values, ranging up to 15 digits. So obviously it can store 1.5, right? So when I try to print it, it should give me 1.5 according to the normal logic, but still it gives me 1. So the reason for this is even though double can store 1 point any value, the value is in decimal point, the return type which it is getting the value of 1, since 3 is in integer format, 2 is in integer format. So the return type of this whole expression is integer. So 3 divided by 2 is 1.5. It gets converted to integer, and then it comes to A as 1. So the integer form of 1.5, the int of 1.5 is obviously 1. So 1 is returned to double A and it is stored in double. So how do I make it 1.5? I want 1.5. I have a double over here which can store the decimal values. Now I want to take the decimal values of this expression. So there is a concept called the order of data types, right? There is a certain order to it. Like first comes the double, then comes the float, then after that we have the long, and after that we have the long, followed by the int, followed by char. So whenever you do such calculations, the calculation, I'll type it out, calculations are always performed in higher data types. So in this this expression over here, double is the highest data type, highest order of data type. Float follows it, long int, character. So if you have a long and a int, you have a int variable and a long variable, it will be all converted and performed in long int. As simple as that. So if I want to store a double value over here, I want 1.5. What I will do is simply write 3.0 instead. When I write 3.0, Notice over here, the output I get is 1.5. That is because 3.0 belongs to float. So this whole expression now has a return type of float. So it will return me the 1.5 value, which will then get stored in the double. As simple as that. So this is the simple thing. So coming back to a previous example where we had, let's keep it in back. Yeah. So here we had a, let's say, an integer which was int n, and I will tell you the values of these three: the int, long int, and long int. So the normal int which we use ranges from 10 raised to 9, 10 raised to minus 9, up to 10 raised to 9. Both negative and positive side of the 0, 10 raised to 9, 10 raised to minus 9. And then we have the long int, which would go the long int. So long int would go a bit longer, which is 12 and 12. So 10 raised to minus 12 to 10 raised to 12. Then we have the long int, which is the largest of the int family. Yeah. So it goes from 10 raised to minus 18 up till 10 raised to 18. So long int is the biggest of all. So in case you have a question where it is mentioned that the values will go up to 10 raised to 10, then you should avoid using int. Instead, you can use long int. Or for insurance purpose, you can go with the long int. Okay, so let's use the same old example like 10 with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros multiplied by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 zeros. And we'll comment this out. And I will see out this. Obviously, since you know that int has a limit of 10 raised to 9, this adds up 10 raised to 5 and 10 raised to 6 adds up to 10 raised to 11. So obviously, it cannot process it and it shows me the overflow value, the maximum value of int, and then the overflow taken by it. So what we can do, we know that we can just add a long over here, long. It should be able to contain it. But still we get the error of overflow. The reason for that is since we have learned recently the 3 by 2 this thing, it calculates the whole thing in integer format. An integer can only hold values up till 10 raised to 9. So since the calculation itself is going in 10 raised to 11, this calculation wants to return a value of 10 raised to 11. But in order to transport that value, the integer has only the limit of 10 raised to 9. So it cannot transport the value of 10 raised to 11 towards n. So what we need to do is convert this whole thing into a higher data type. Like we are calculating it in int, and int only has value of 10 raised to 9. Let's convert it into long int. So how do we do it? The calculations are always performed in the highest data type of its all the members present. So let's add something like 1 ln. Now this is a special thing. When I run it, you will get 1 followed by 11 zeros. Now 1 LL stands for long. So it is just 1 multiplied by long. It's 1. So it won't change your calculation. 1 multiplied by anything won't change your calculation. But the thing it does is it brings in this long. So 1 is in long format. Since it's in long format, all the calculations are performed in higher data types. So this whole expression is converted into long. And now the range which it can return is up to 10 raised to 18. So now it can easily return 10 raised to 11. So now storing this won't be an issue for us. So remember, whenever you have questions with where the calculations can go a bit higher, at that point of time, you might think that, okay, I've declared long it to store that value, but still giving me an overflow. That is because these calculations are performed in integer, and integer cannot return a greater value than 10 raised to 9. So you have to multiply it by 1 ln. And also one more thing, what you might mistakenly do is multiply it by 1 ln like this. Now this is not acceptable. You have to multiply it in the start of the expression, start of the all calculation over here. Okay, cool with this. Now you might not be able to like there are multiple zeros, so you might not be able to read them correctly. I will show you a small thing which uh, you can use over here. You guys can remember it if you like it. And there are also multiple questions where this is asked, like I want to know the number of zeros in this whole thing. I want to know the number of digits. So for that, I will just use the floor function followed by log10. And inside that, I will give my n value and I will print it. So this will give me the number of zeros, which is 11, right? 10 raised to 5 multiplied by 10 raised to 6 should give me 10 raised to 11, which is 1 followed by 11 zeros. I'm getting 11. So this function, this whole expression which I wrote over here gives me the value 1 less than the whole thing, right? So if I have 100 over here stored in integer, I have int n equals 100. It will return me 2 since it has only two zeros. Returns me 2. So if you want the number of all the digits present, you just have to add 1 to it because it ignores the first character. Actually, a calculation like a log to the base 10, it takes the log and the floor value to it. Because we are taking the floor value, we get one less value. So for that, we have to add 1. And I get the number of digits. This is an interesting thing. If you want to calculate the number of digits, it can be done mathematically. But remember, the floor and log values are inside the header file of math. So you will have to include the header file of math over here if you are using normal includes. But since we are using bits std c++, we don't have to care about all those header files because with bits std c++, all the major header files which are included are already taken, right? So for the same example, we have an interesting thing. Like I don't know if you guys have known this. In SP, you must have come across left shift and right shift. So the left shift gives me the power. Like we know the powers of two, everything is in binary. So if I write 101, it is 5. Why? Because 2 raised to uh, uh, the 2 raised to 0 times 1. These are the coefficients. So 2 raised to 0, this stands for 2 raised to 0. 2 raised to 0 is 1. 1 into 1 is 1 equals 1 plus, so 2 raised to 1 is 2 multiplied by 0 is 0. So which gives me 0. Now 2 raised to 2 is 4 multiplied by 1 should give me 4. So this whole thing equals to 5. So what left shift does is left shift shifts uh, all the symbols like ones and zeros to left a bit and adds a 0 over here. So the difference which it makes right now is like this will be now interpreted as 2 raised to 3, which is 8. So 8 plus 2 raised to 1, which is 2, which is equal to, this is 8 plus 0 plus 2 plus 0. So which should give me 10, right? So this is 1010 is for 10. So whenever we do a left shift, the whole thing gets multiplied, right? So before the left shift, it was just 5. Now since I've left shifted it, it becomes 10. So if I left shift it again, it should become 10 into 20. Sorry, 10 into 2, which is 20. So this is the left shift operator. If you want to multiply things in the power of 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2, you can use the left shift. And the right shift does exactly the opposite. It divides things. That is simple basic. Now, what if I want to store a value of, let's say, left shift 10 and see out that value? 1024. Okay, simple enough. What if I increase it up to 20? You knew, right? That 10, 2 raised to 10 is 1024. That's the reason why we got 1024 over here. Now, what if I want this thing? And it's actually during the competitive programming, many a times you have to take power of twos into the program. So this is a better way to do it if you don't have anything related to the power part. If you just simply want the values of it, you can just do this thing: left shift the one by the power you want. Like I wanted the 2 to the power 10. So instead of multiplying the thing 10 times, I can just go for this thing and get easily get 1024. Okay, so continuing on this, if I take a 20, gives me a good value, bit large. Let's go with 30. Okay, a bigger value, but still okay, manageable. Let's go with the 40. Okay, so 40 throws me an error of overflow since int cannot take in the value of 1 2 raised to 40. It's so large that it cannot be taken in 10 raised to 9 digits, this power. So over here is the time to use our long long. Always remember there will be several times when you have to use long long and you might not recognize it. So again we have the same thing which we had over there, right? We use the long long, so we have enough space to store 10 raised to whatever value we are getting. But the thing right now is that it cannot return such thing. Left shift count of bit type is like overflow. So what we do is we simply add LL over here, and LL solves all of the problems. Like it can easily return the whole thing, and we can print it out. As simple as that. Now we'll be taking a few questions. If you guys have any questions, you can obviously post it. I'm thinking about asking you a few questions so that you guys are clear with the concepts. Okay. So, yeah, there is also an interesting thing like unsigned and signed, which I would like to mention. Like the unsigned int. Primitive data types, of course, we have int, char, wchar, and all that, but float, double. But this signed, then comes the long, then long long, or all the additions which we do to the data type itself. So whenever we add that, the data type, okay, sure. But whenever we add that, our data type, our primitive data type is modified to a use. Like when we add unsigned, you know that integer contains value from 10 raised to minus 9 to 10 raised to 9. But when we add unsigned, this thing gets removed and we get integers only in positive value. So if I do something like unsigned equals 10 and I try to see out it, let's give this a name as x. I try to see out x. Okay, it's cool, it gives me 10. But if I were to make it minus 10, it would give me this some bizarre value. Now the things with overflow is a very interesting concept. Like many a times you have all the logic sorted out, you have done the whole coding stuff, you have written all the algorithms, but you get this overflow, and sometimes since this number is written, there is no error over here, as you can see. So you are like, okay, I have written the whole thing, there is no error, I'm getting some value, but that value is bizarre. Like it doesn't matches up with what I have. and it is some very big, something bizarre value, which is like I was supposed to have minus 10 over here, but I'm not getting it. So that is because of the overflow. Like every data type has its limits. So once this limit is crossed, like suppose if my data type has the limit of 100, from minus 100 to 100, I make a new data type whose limit is minus 100 to 100. So what happens during the overflow phase is, when you declare, like my data type's name is, let's say, Andy. Let's call it Andy. My data type name is Andy. So its value ranges from 100 to minus 100, right? So what if I declare a variable like Andy, then the name of variable, let's call it C, is equals to, I give it a value of 101. Now it will, in normal circumstances, if we were to use int and all, and we declare a value out of its scope, it gives us some bizarre value. So normally what happens is when I enter this value of 101 in my uh, data type, the thing it does is it takes 101, so 100, up till 100 it can compute. The moment it gets 101, it goes back to minus 100 and it will return me minus 100. So if I were to enter 102, 102 is again exceeding this, but by how much? It exceeds this by 2. So it should return me minus 99. This is the thing. So it actually has a capacity of 200. 100 plus 100, 200. So up till you go up to 200. So if I put up 200 over here, my capacity is only 100. So it goes up to 100. It takes 100 of these. It is stored. Then for 200 part, it goes up again in the negative and it shows from minus 100, minus 99. Then comes the minus 98 and so on up to 0. So what now? After 0, if I put like at 200, when I put up 200, I will get 0. So after that, what if I put 201? If I put 201, it should not return, go again in the number line and return me 1, right? It will be obscure. So once it crosses the 201 mark, it will return me the value of 100 and tell me that it's overflow. Obviously, during these times also, it will give me a warning of overflow, but it will still print some value. I'm telling you the meaning behind this value. If you're within the range, like int has a range of minus of 10 raised to 19 to 10 raised to 19. So if you are within this range, it will give you the value in negative. If you have surpassed this range, but you are still within the addition, the sum of these two, 10 raised to 19 plus 10 raised to 9, 10 raised to 9 plus 10 raised to 9. So it will give you this value. Of course, 10 raised to 9 plus 10 raised to 9 is 2 into 10 raised to 9. So till you are within that value, it will give you the negatives. But once you have also surpassed that value, it will give you the maximum value possible, followed by the overflow warning. Coming up to the question, how to convert in long int? Long int is same as the int, right? Also, one thing you can do is, let's try the same thing, the thing which we did up there, in a different format. Like if you don't want to add up one LL, what you can do is you have an integer named n, which has value of, how many zeros is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and then you have an integer named b, which takes up value of 1, 0, 0, 0. So 10 raised to 7 and 10 raised to 4. So if we multiply both of these, it should give me 10 raised to 11. So for that, I'm smart enough. I know that 10 raised to 11 is within 10 raised to 12. So I can use long int, and I take long int L equals to n into b. Now it's 10 raised to 11, 10 raised to 7 into 10 raised to 4. So it should give me 10 raised to 11, which is within long int. And I try to print the long int again. It gives me this obscure value, which is not 10 raised to 11. It should be 1 followed by 11 zeros. Now again, the thing is that the calculations are being performed in int. So I want to convert it into long int. So one thing I can, other than the normal methods, I can declare a long int over here. Hey, suppose if you have a long int, which is 1, let's declare it as 1. And I multiply that long int over here. Again, we have to remember to multiply it. When I multiply it, okay, few differences. Since we see this difference right here is the specimen that we are inside the double of that range, but still we are not able to have the perfect values. So let's make this thing as long and see if we can get the same thing out. Okay, long can easily contain it. What if we take down one more of these things? Take out the long as well. So it gives us an error, right? And still prints it. Yeah, that was for the earlier one. And it can easily fathom up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it can go up till there. So it has a limit, long has a smaller limit than the long, and it can take up to these values. Even if I remove this, what we will see right now is that we are not just using it, but still it is within the ranges of int itself. So long it is an interesting concept. We will have to read up on it. I will provide all the materials required. So let's revise what all we have seen up till now. We have seen the header file, which contains all the header file. We have seen why we use namespace std. Namespace std is as simple as uh, just telling the compiler that everything I'll be using from now on will have the namespace of std. So don't get confused, and I won't be declaring it again. Like I'm telling you this at the start only. Whatever I use will have the namespace std. Then we go in, we do the cout. We prefer /n more than the endl because endl not only moves the cursor to next line, it flushes out the contents to the console, which is not required. If something is not getting printed, it should not get printed. So no need to force it in CP, and also it increases the time. We don't have such problems in CP where we need the output is not coming out and we have to flush it. So it's always preferred to use /n, and you can use /n like this. You can add it over here with the hello itself. Still works the same. And it's also a bit lighter since it only moves the cursor to next line. Next, we saw the declaration of int, how we take in the integers, how we print out integers, the character, why we should not use the double quotes for character. Character should always have single quotes. The character can only recognize up to 255 symbols. So that is why we took up the wide character, which can take many more unique symbols than 255. And thus it is used for languages such as used for languages as Hindi, Japanese, and so on. So we saw how to take in an character array. The scene of the character array will obviously be the same as the scene which we did here. Then we saw how to see out it. It's simple as that. Then the wchar is the same as character in most of the aspects, but wchar usually stores the value of whatever we are giving it. So you should make sure that if you want the symbol itself Like if we are storing A over here, it will store the value 65 of A in W. So if I want to print A again, I have to use W cout. Then again we saw the printing of the wchar array. Also, whenever you are giving a string to the wchar array, you have to write L over here, which means literal, and it takes the literal values of each of these. Then we saw the bool, and we came to know that unless and until we use false, zero, or leave it undeclared, it will take up the value of true. So whatever value you give it, string, integer, unless and until you give it false and zero, it will take the value as true and print it as one. So whenever you see out the boolean values, it will give you in form of ones and zeros. Then we saw float and doubles, which are 4 bytes and 8 bytes respectively. Then we saw why the return type problem, which we might face, the overflow problems. So since 3 divided by 2 is 1.5, but integer can only take integer values, not the decimal values. So it returns 1, which is then stored in A and then printed out. But if we want 1.5, we have to calculate this whole thing in higher data type, which is float. So for converting it in float, we just added zero point 0 over there with the 3, or we could have also added it with 2.0, or we could have multiplied it by 1.0. We just need something of higher data type inside this expression, and then we entered it out. We saw the whole order in which it is performed, and always the calculations will be performed in the higher data type order. And we saw the limits of each of these, and whenever, even though you have the larger data type, to store the values, the return type should also match the value which it's calculating. So even though this 10 raised to 11 thing can be stored over here, the return type doesn't have that much space to return that value. So we have to convert this whole thing into a higher data type, which is long long. So for converting into long long, we multiplied it by 1 LL, which can also be replaced by 1 capital L capital L. Then we saw the unsigned, and also we saw how a data type shows the overflow values, which we saw. So overflow, if the value is from -100 to 100, it will overflow at 100, but still show negatives value up till from -100, 99, 98 up till 0. And after 0, it will just show me the maximum value of that data type with the overflow flag. And that's all we covered for today. Okay, let's do a fun question. Like I'll type up a program. Okay, if I go up here and let's declare a character array, name it as, and let's store, let's say, fine in it. And then I will just, which should I change? Okay, the first one I will change. S equals to, let's store n in it. And remember the single quotes, yeah? Not store string in the, and if I decide C out, I hope you guys didn't see that. Okay. So what do you guys think is the output of this thing? If I have declared a character array with fine and using star s and putting in n, and I see out this, the whole thing might be changed to n, the whole string might be converted to n. I might get an error. There might be many things which could go wrong. What do you guys think should happen? Okay, 9. Yeah, one of the things about this is whenever you declare a string, we'll see one error over here. See, if I'm writing s, let's bring in the code file. Yeah, the answer was 9 and it was correct. So I will show you one thing. When you declare this thing as char, and of course, char cannot take values of string. So the error which shows up over here is that const char star. So this gives us a pointer, the character pointer towards the first thing. So when I change this thing, star of s equals to n. So I'm not referring to the character array which was here anymore. I'm referring to the star of s. In s, star of s, the first value, the initial header value, the value of head, which is f, is stored. The address of f is stored. Since array are continuous, homogeneous data type of continuous memory locations of homogeneous data type. So this f is stored. The address of f is stored in the starting of s. So when I go into the address of f and I put up a star, star means the value. So I can now change the value over here, and it will be converted to 9. If I make it, should be DINE. So over here I'm changing the initial value of this whole array. That's it. So we'll be covering up arrays in the next coming up sessions, and it is also a nice deep. It has many unique things about itself: the overflows, the limits, what you can declare inside an array, how much you can extend it. Array is a unique concept, and we'll learn it in the upcoming lectures. So, unless and until you guys have any doubts, that's it for today.